I sit down with the most influential Sunni Muslim religious leader in Saudi Arabia and one of the most influential Muslim clerics in the world for his first ever interview on American Christian television. And I'll be direct. Will he condemn the Hamas invasion of Israel on October 7th? Will he denounce Hamas as a terrorist organization? And will he go even farther, demanding the immediate and unconditional release of all the hostages that Hamas is holding in Gaza? Are there any Muslims in the world that will condemn what Hamas did in invading Israel on October 7th, 2023, and slaughtering 1,200 Jews, Israeli Jews, and taking 251 Israelis, Americans, and others hostage and taking them inside Gaza? Good evening and welcome to the Rosenberg Report. I am in Washington, D.C. right now, and this week we have a very special interview. Joining me is going to be Sheikh Mohammed Al-Isa. Now, Sheikh Mohammed is a Saudi citizen. He was the justice minister for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And for the last number of years now, he has been the Secretary General of an organization known as the Muslim World League, MWL. Now, the Muslim World League is the largest non-governmental Sunni Muslim organization on the planet. Okay, so Sheikh Mohammed Al-Isa, as a Sunni religious cleric, is one of the most influential, if not the most influential, Sunni Muslim leaders on the planet. Okay? Now, I got to know him when I first met the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, when he invited me to bring the first ever evangelical Christian delegation ever to come to Saudi Arabia, to meet with him and his senior leaders to talk about peace, prosperity, religious freedom, all kinds of other issues. And Sheikh Mohammed Al-Isa, as one of the Saudi Crown Prince's closest advisors on religious issues, was in the room. And after the meeting, he invited my colleagues and I to come and spend time with him personally so we could get to know him. And we did that again the next year when we were invited by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia to go to Jeddah on the Red Sea. And we had further deep conversations with the Crown Prince and then later with Sheikh Mohammed as well. So fascinating man. And he serves on the All Arab News Advisory Board, one of the organizations, one of the media sites that I launched about 4.5 years ago. So very influential, and he's got some very interesting and in much of the Muslim world controversial things to say. This is his first time on an American Christian television network, and he's come on the Rosenberg Report. Let's go to my interview with Sheikh Mohammed Al-Isa. Sheikh Mohammed, what an honor to see you. Thank you for inviting me to sit down with you and for dinner last night, and now thank you for accepting my invitation to come on the Rosenberg Report.
It's my honor.
Well, thank you very, very much. I was so fascinated by your comments last night. You and I have been friends now for about 6 years, having first met in Riyadh as you were sitting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and we brought the first evangelical delegation to meet with him. And I want to start with October 7th, because you made some very strong statements last night at dinner. How do you, as a Muslim and one of the most influential Muslim leaders in the world, how do you see what happened, the invasion of Israel by Hamas on October 7th? How do you see that?
Of course, we have repeatedly talked about October 7th. We have said that we condemn what happened on October 7th. We have stated that this does not represent the teachings of Islam or the wisdom of Islam. Also, we condemn the reaction to Gaza with the destructive war, which also targeted women and children. There is no doubt that October 7th and the Gaza war are completely unacceptable. We demand the release of prisoners and hostages from both sides, without conditions, those who have been unjustly captured and detained.
Hamas says they are true and devout Muslims, and they are waging jihad against Israel and the Jewish people. So you're the arguably the most influential Muslim cleric on the planet, right? Running the Muslim World League, which is a huge Islamic organization, giving guidance to so many Muslim clerics and theologians and all, and to people. Why is Hamas wrong? Help us as Christians understand why Hamas is wrong in their interpretation of the Quran and the Hadith, and that you're teaching Muslims that this is wrong, because it's very important for us to understand that.
Of course, Hamas is classified as a terrorist organization. Hamas is a faction outside the Palestinian Authority. Hamas only represents itself with its mere political interpretation of Islam, which is far from the teachings of Islam and the wisdom of Islam, and from Islam's call for dialogue for the sake of peace in our world, and the harmony of its national societies at large, and the Palestinian-Israeli issue in particular, to achieve a just and comprehensive peace in the region. What Hamas is doing can never create peace, nor can the reaction with the destructive war in Gaza. Both cannot create peace in the region. We confirmed that what is happening and what happened on October 7th represents Hamas alone, which is a faction that broke away from the Palestinian Authority. Hamas only represents itself and does not represent the Palestinian people. Additionally, what is happening in Gaza in terms of a devastating war represents the current Israeli government and does not represent the entire Jewish people.
I want to say thank you, first of all, shukran, because a Muslim cleric of your influence, of your stature, it's really important for my viewers, Christians all over America and around the world, to understand you're condemning Hamas as terrorists. You're condemning their invasion and slaughter of Israelis and Americans and others as horrible. You're condemning the taking of hostages. You do have criticism of the Israeli government of how they have conducted the war. We'll get to that in a moment, but this is not a small thing. Certainly statements have been made by various Arab leaders, but in my recollection over the past year or so, in English, or to an American audience, let's say, I can only think of the Bahraini crown prince as speaking so forcefully. Again, I'm not saying that the others haven't condemned October 7th. They have. But you're coming on a Christian television network and you're saying it so clearly. And I think that's very, very important. And I want to say thank you as an American, as an Israeli, and as a Christian. But first, I want to say that in Israel's darkest hour, a lot of people are asking me, how can we help? How can we support Israel in its time of greatest need and be part of that biblical mandate found in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, where God is speaking of blessing those who bless the people of Israel, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Well, a great way to do it is to partner with our sponsor of today's edition of the Rosenberg Report, ARTSA. Go to artsabox.com. Use the discount promo code RR15, Rosenberg Report 15, to get a 15% discount off the price of your ArtSA box. They are literally a taste of the Holy Land, and they come directly to your home in a beautiful box that contains potpourri, a range of all kinds of products made in Israel by all kinds of Israeli artisans, entrepreneurs, and small business owners. You're going to love them for yourself, for your family, and they make great gifts as well. Check it out. Go to artsabox.com, use the discount code RR15, Rosenberg Report 15, and I have no doubt that you'll love these boxes, these ArtSA boxes, as much as Lynn and I do. From your conversation today and even more last night at dinner, you're certainly criticizing the number of civilians that have died, the level of destruction in Gaza, which has grieved all of us. It has, especially, I think, the Christian community, but many Israelis are very sick and saddened by how destructive this war has been. But I want to make sure I understand, are you saying that the war, because Israelis see the war as a war of self-defense, and I think it legitimately is, do you see it as a war of self-defense that you wish had been managed differently, or are you saying, no, it was not a war of self-defense, Israel doesn't have that right to fight and try to destroy or at least neutralize Hamas?
Such an attack that took place on October 7th should be dealt with wisely, not recklessly. It should not be dealt with in a way that results in the killing of tens of thousands of women, children, and other innocent people. Killing tens of thousands of people only to search for specific people from Hamas in Gaza. Where is the logic in this action? Where are the religious values? Where are the human norms? What kind of international logic is this? There is no doubt that this is completely unacceptable. Matters should be dealt with wisely and not in this manner. I can say that most countries in the world, if not almost all countries in the world, have condemned this. Also, you as Christians talk about it. And many Jewish people were pained by what is happening. These matters should be dealt with wisely and not in this manner.
I hear you. I just want to make sure I'm clear, though. Do you see it as a legitimate war of self-defense that you wish had been managed better? Is that, or do you think it's illegitimate?
I believe that Israel or any other party must approach any situation with wisdom that promotes peace and dialogue, rather than in the manner currently unfolding, not in a way that complicates things, or in a way that escalates the conflict and increases the suffering.
But you're not answering my specific question, which is, isn't a war of self-defense a UN guaranteed right? And even though, I have differences with my own government, and certainly you do, but is it legitimate? In other words, if you're attacked, you have to fight back against what you described as a terrorist organization, right? Is that fair? Is that a correct view? I just want to make sure I understand you, and that our viewers do as well.
I said that Israel should act wisely. It should act in a way that promotes peace and does not escalate the suffering in the region. I condemned October 7th and announced this condemnation. I think my words are very clear.
Okay, well, we may disagree on that, but I appreciate your condemnation of Hamas and describing them as a terrorist organization and condemning October 7th. I think what I'd like to do now is shift to where do we go from here? And how can Muslims and Christians, as well as Jews, what can we do to rebuild Gaza, to de-radicalize Gaza? The mosques were teaching hatred and murder of Israeli Jews and Christians. You and the Saudi government and the Emiratis and Bahrainis have really worked hard at de-radicalizing mosques, schools, media. You have a lot of experience, and the Muslim World League has been a leader in that, something I've been fascinated with and very encouraged by. So what's your vision of Gaza 2.0, the future of Gaza, and how do we work together?
Of course, we always call for a discourse of reason, wisdom, and moderation. We do not call for a discourse of clash and conflict that does not create solutions or peace. We call on everyone to represent a moderate Islamic discourse. We also call on other religions, Christianity and Judaism, to present the same moderate discourse that represents the common religious values. Any discourse that would escalate conflict, strife, and hatred is not useful at all, even if some believe that they will achieve victory in this, or a confrontation that they believe is fair. They will ultimately be the losers and will not achieve any gains in this. Religious discourse is very important in contributing to enhancing the chances of peace in the region. It is also very important in enhancing the peace of our world in general and the harmony of its national societies. We can say through approximate statistics that 80% of our world on this planet are followers of faiths. They respect their faiths to varying degrees, and these people do listen to religious discourse, and it influences them. Therefore, we call on all religious leaders to present a religious discourse that will enhance peace and harmony among all. a discourse that will enhance friendship and cooperation among nations and peoples in the face of ideas of religious, ethnic, cultural, and even political conflict and strife. Of course, as you know, the region has religious aspects. The conflict in that region has religious roots, and these religious roots cause religious leaders to bear the responsibility to present a moderate discourse, a discourse that creates solutions or enhances existing solutions. There are some initiatives, especially the Arab Initiative, which is a just initiative that achieves a just and comprehensive peace. There is also an international call issued by the United Nations General Assembly and in accordance with international law. With the current administration, the White House is advocating for a two-state solution. We believe that there is no other option but the two-state solution and the recognition of the Palestinian state. Therefore, based on this right and based on international law, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia led an international coalition to implement the two-state solution.
Are you optimistic as we go into 2025 that maybe a Saudi-American-Israeli agreement, normalization, could actually be accomplished? Is that something that you think is more possible today or less possible because of this war?
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has announced its position again. It is a firm position that does not change and will not change. There can be no normalization, except by recognizing the Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. This is a declared and firm position of Saudi Arabia.
Well, President Trump himself laid out a plan several years ago. It was rejected immediately by the Palestinian Authority, but it did have these major elements in it. I don't know if Israelis are ready for that, given what's happened, but it's interesting that President Trump has a lot of trust in Israel. Israelis really like him, and his plan did involve a demilitarized Palestinian state with at least part of East Jerusalem being part of a capital. Do you see the Trump plan as a starting point that the Palestinians should maybe dust off and reconsider?
We hope that there will be a new dialogue to reach the desired goal of establishing an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital. And the final decision to accept the project presented in this will be made by the Palestinians themselves.
Okay, I have one more question for you, although I have so many more questions, and I look forward to spending more time with you, Sheikh. What will it take for you to accept my invitation to come to Jerusalem to meet with Muslim leaders, Jewish leaders, and Christian leaders? I know we've talked about this in the past. The time has not been right in recent years, and especially not this year. But I would still love for you to come as maybe, you're not officially a government minister. You used to be the justice minister, but now you're a Muslim cleric. Do you see a moment that maybe that would be a helpful move to move the process forward, meet with Palestinians as well as Israelis? And let me just add, there's so much pain right now that I'm not saying that, this month, next month, but if we can get these wars ended and people beginning to be healed and reconstruction and moving in the right direction, I think your voice of moderation, of peace, of working together with Jews and Christians and Muslims, I think is a very important voice. So I'm not trying to accelerate a process in a moment of great pain, but I still think your visit could help pave the way for something very, very positive.
Of course, we have great hope for achieving comprehensive and just peace. Our hope is always there. Whenever peace is achieved there, we go together to bless this peace.
I would love to welcome you, and I look forward to that day. I pray for that day. And I also want to say, Sheikh, that I appreciate you sitting with an American, Israeli, Jewish follower of Jesus. I know that's a unique set of identities, but for you to come on my program and on the world's most watched Christian network, it means a lot to me personally, and I want to say shukran. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. It's an honor. You've welcomed me to your home city, and I look forward to welcoming you to mine, but it's also yours. Jerusalem is a city for Muslims as well as Jews and Christians. Shukran.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We say we will be there when peace comes there to bless this peace, which we hope will be soon.
Inshallah, Lord willing. All right, God bless you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. What a fascinating interview with Sheikh Mohammed Al-Isa, Secretary General of the Muslim World League, former Saudi Justice Minister, and one of the closest allies and advisors on religious issues to Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. You heard some fascinating things. Now, I want to be clear. There are Arab leaders throughout the region that did make statements early on, after October 7th, after Hamas invaded Israel. They did make statements condemning Hamas. But mostly what we've heard over the past year plus since is, but Israel's wrong about this, Israel's wrong about this, Israel's wrong about this. So I want to be clear that Sheikh Mohammed isn't the first Muslim leader to condemn forcefully and unequivocally the actions of Hamas. And he did it on this show. Very, very interesting. He's not the only one that's done it, but he's doing it consistently, and here he is doing it on his first ever interview on American Christian television. I think that's very, very significant for him to come on TBN, to come on the Rosenberg Report, talk to an Israeli citizen, dual U.S.-Israeli citizen, a Jewish evangelical Christian, and have this conversation with me. Now, you saw that he demanded all the hostages to be released immediately. Good. Both of those things are good things. Now, he struggled with, understandably, but let's just be honest, he struggled with saying that Israel had a legitimate right to fight in self-defense. I pressed him on that several times, and he wouldn't say, yes, Israel has a legitimate right of self-defense. He had a lot of criticisms of how Israel has conducted the war in Gaza. I don't think that part is surprising. And I wish that the Sheikh had been more clear and more willing to say that Israel does have a legitimate right of self-defense, even if he thinks they're doing it badly. He wouldn't be the only one that thinks Israel's doing it badly. There's lots of criticisms, even by many Israelis, okay? But I think the other thing that was very interesting is that I would say that Sheikh Mohammed is bullish on the prospect of an Israeli-Saudi normalization agreement, but I think it's clear from talking to him that he believes it's difficult. It's much more difficult today than it was before the October 7th invasion, because a lot of Saudis, a lot of Muslims in the world, in the region, are angry at Israel, right? They are grieved by what they see in Gaza and, of course, in Lebanon, too. And it has made the path forward for Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman more difficult. And yet, the Sheikh said he does think that it's possible to see peace in the region. He was insistent on a two-state solution. That won't fly well in Israel right now. But of course, President Trump does support a two-state solution as long as the Palestinian state is demilitarized. Very interesting conversation. So grateful for Sheikh Mohammed coming on the program and letting me ask these type of questions that most TV interviewers, most Christians don't have a chance to ask someone of his stature and his caliber. Thank you so much for watching the Rosenberg Report. Please keep praying for Israel, for all the hostages to be released, and for this war, both on the northern front in Lebanon and in the southern front, the southern theater in Gaza, to come to an end where Israel has secured its borders, has gotten its people back home, and that there can be peace and calm. And then the question becomes, how do we rebuild? How do we go? Where do we go from here? Those are important questions. We'll continue to look at those closely on future episodes of the Rosenberg Report. Thank you so much for watching. As we head towards Christmas, I pray that God will bless you and your family, give you encouragement as you spend time in His Word, as you spend time in prayer and in fellowship with other followers of Jesus Christ, and as you share this program with family and friends so that they can see an Arab Muslim, a prominent Arab Muslim, forcefully condemning Hamas and calling for these hostages to be released. I was encouraged by that. Hope you were too. May God bless you. Have a great week. Lord willing, I'll see you next week right here on the Rosenberg Report.